Welcome to the Rye Arts Center. My name is Nina Bentley, and I'm the co-curator of Fashion Statement, Clothing with Content. It's an art show that has 2 more days to go. So unfortunately, if this is very interesting to you and you want to see the show, it will be too late. But we may figure out a way for you to contact us. So when this show travels to another place, we'll be able to let you know where it is. The statement about the show is very clear. We chose artists who use clothing as their canvas. These are not art. This is not like Cow Parade where somebody gives you a cow and you do something with it. These are serious artists who have been using clothing as their oeuvre, as their art form for many, many, many years. Margot Clark Junkins assisted me in curating this show, and both she and I have artwork in the show, which we will show you later on. We start out with the first artist represented is Edward Mader. He's the head of Historic Deerfield, and he has created these fantasy vests out of paper. He's created the paper by gluing layer after layer of tissue paper and napkins and created a form of fabric and made these vests. And I would say that of all the work in the show, his work, though being wonderful and decorative, conforms the least to the theme because it doesn't really have content. Its essence is the look, the beauty of it. And most of the other work in the show is conceptual in nature and was chosen for that reason. As an assemblage artist, I particularly am attracted to assemblage artwork. And I'm also attracted to work that has content. The next piece in the show is an installation. It's actually our only installation, and it's called Good Girls. And it's, I was the artist. It was done for this show. And it's about, well, the backs of the shoes are meant to look like blackboards, and the writing on the backs of the shoes are the 7 deadly sins and all the things good girls shouldn't do, like lie or cheat or steal. And it's about the pressures on women and men, on young people today to conform, to be good. I was told by one group of children from Holy Child, to whom I was giving a tour, that if you really rubbed your feet on the floor, you could get rid of all those things that you weren't supposed to do. I thought that was an interesting addition to the piece. They all say good girls. Each label of the shoes are good girls. Moving around the corner, most of the work in the show was chosen. It was artwork I had seen and liked, and it sort of came together in my head as a cohesive show. And this artist is named Ginger Krebs. She's from Chicago, and this piece was originally seen at the Aldrich Museum in Ridgefield in a show called Family. And this piece is called We. And it's 2 dresses woven together in the center. The artist is a twin, and she has written a very touching statement about her relationship with her sister, the closeness, the incredible tie of twinship, of twinness, but also her desire to be herself, to pull apart. This dress is displayed as the artist determined it should be, draped over a chair. It's somehow easier to see if it's held up. For me, this piece it's very essentially complete, both the visual, the message, and the craftsmanship. It's a very wonderful piece in my mind. I think I was very happy when she said yes and was willing to ship her piece from Chicago. The next artist is Karen Lamont, and she's probably the most famous artist in our show. She's an American. She's now studying in the Czech Republic. She's had a Fulbright grant. She is essentially a glass artist and has created full-scale clothing, full-scale figures out of glass. And also she has done some prints, and we are lucky enough to have 2 of her prints from the Heller Gallery in New York. And Karen was discovered by Margot Junkins on the internet. And when I give tours to artists, this work is so special because artists tend to respond to, wait a minute, how did she do it? It's the how did they do it that is what really sparks an artist's interest. And these are prints of actual clothes, a dress that has been inked and placed on the press with paper over it and the press rolled over, and then the image appears as a monoprint on the paper. And I think what's so wonderful about these are the delicacy, the detail that she's been able to achieve. And it occurred to me that maybe this is many prints later, that the ink has essentially left the ink, a lot of the ink has dried up. She talks in her work about using clothing to conceal or reveal. And another artist, Anne Brescher-Bogart, who is the chairman of the art department at the Bethel School System. She's done a series of coats using tin cans and other materials, and this coat is made completely out of used tea bags. And she, I think this is just a very beautiful piece. It, to me, has a feeling of a samurai warrior, and it very much shows clothing as a protection, as a coat that shields you from the world, protects you. This is my work. It's called Coming of Age. It's a wall assemblage, and I've used photographs to a collection of antique photographs to show women and children. And the piece started out to be about the coming of age of children leaving the nest. These were the caregivers, and here were the young children. And then as the piece developed, it became more about my coming of age. And the moths really symbolized drying up and decay, and the drain, the hardening of the drain. It was the ending of my life as a procreator, or it really became about my aging. And I have discovered in my work, as I think about it afterward, as I analyze it, that there's always sort of an arc where I start out in one place and sort of end up in another. And it's often a more, in the course of the introspection, I reach a maybe sadder, more poignant place than when I start. This was originally shown in a show at the New Britain Museum of American Art, where I had a one-woman show in the year 2000. Coming around is Carrie McDougall, a wonderful young artist. I met her when she was the president of the Women's Caucus for the Arts, and she is now in Kansas. She's a professor, assistant professor in the art department. And this piece, Little Women, was originally displayed on the ground. It had many more pieces. She has elaborate statements about women's role and women's sewing and women working. I find her work just very beautiful. I think she captures an essence of femininity that is very special in her work. These are dresses that she's made out of fabric and have dipped in beeswax. So I think the shadows on the wall are as engaging as the group. And this is Katie did. This was the image we used on the card. It actually should be shown in a taller ceilinged place. And it's about women and their choices. These are fortunes. These are the possible good luck or bad luck, the many choices that are open to women that are at their feet. The 3 aprons are part of a series of 12, also by Carrie McDougall. I don't know how much I really understand her message, but I feel her message. And I find her work very beautiful. So I've always been attracted to it, and I've been a collector of hers. She's worth keeping an eye on. By the way, Karen Lamont, the glass blower, the prints I showed you, and Carrie McDougall both have big websites that are really worth logging on to, because you can see a lot of their images. This is a piece called A Bridal Survival Kit. And it was first seen by me in a show called Wearable Art, and it was at the Flynn Gallery in Greenwich about, I think it was about 2 years ago. I had some of my shoes in the show. And this dress is made up of 2 layers of fabric with pills sewn in. And in the back, there are these 2 beautiful birds that she's created that you can see in the back of the dress. And she actually wore this to her wedding. She is from Philadelphia. So we have Chicago, Philadelphia, Connecticut. And interestingly, this dress is beginning to deteriorate. The pills are beginning to deteriorate. And I think that's an interesting aspect of assemblage art or of working with new materials. Does it not behoove the artist to create a product that's stable? Or does the artist have to sort of change their idea so that it accommodates the deterioration of the artwork? And as I was telling this to a group of young students from Holy Child, one girl said, well, I think I get it. And I said, well, get what? She said, well, you see, when you're first getting married, you're very nervous, so you need all these pills to calm you down. But after you're married, everything's fine, then you don't need the pills anymore, so it's okay if they deteriorate. I thought that was a pretty interesting, I sort of wanted to meet her parents. Anyway, so this piece, I knew when this artist said she would do the show, I knew that we would have a show because I thought this work was so special. That and the tea coat and Ginger Krebs' woven piece, Camille Esquel, who is the head of the art department at Staples High School, or one of the art teachers at Staples High School, has created a series of torsos called Tattooed Ladies. The one on the left is Blue Plate Special. The one on the right is called Nike. And you'll notice this is the 3rd artist that's used photography. Well, actually, the first installation used photography, my work Coming of Age, the aprons, and now you see photographs also used in the torso series. And here she's combined hard and soft materials. And on this slip top, there are ballet dancers, which are just so perfectly symbolic of graceful femininity and yet the strength that is required to be a woman. The show, though mostly by women and about clothing, is only modestly feminist statements. I think more they are universal statements about life, true for both men and women. Coming around the corner, we have a piece called Burning Desire by Margot Clark Junkins, who was the co-curator of this show. She's a graduate of Mount Holyoke, and this piece is called Burning Desire. And like the We dress, I think this piece is essentially very complete. It's visually arresting, it's eye-catching, it's gripping, and yet the message is very clear and very visceral. She talks in her statement about how as we grow older, we're told to quell our burning desires, keep everything under control, do the right thing, be a good girl. And yet sometimes desires are so strong, they are just ready to combust, ready to be inflamed. And I think Margot has captured that, including the paper, which would start the whole process in a moment. This next artist is Joan Wheeler. She is the head of the children's department at the Stanford Museum and Nature Center. And both of these pieces I displayed in another show I curated in 1998 called Woman's Work. The one on the left is called The Ties That Bind, and the one on the right, Woodland Series, though it was originally titled I Always Wanted to Be a Redhead. And I think this piece in particular very clearly combines message with the material, and the whole presentation is a very tight and convincing work of art. And Woodland Nest, you just feel like touching and maybe wearing. Wouldn't that be wonderful to wear? Joan is a prolific assemblage artist, uses innumerable materials in her work. In Woodland Nest, she says, the twigs and leaves and references a reconnection, it all references a reconnection with earth. Robert Friedland, who is the only other one of two male artists in the show, has created figures out of sardine cans and bottle and can tops. And he is talking about the choice of the pull tops from sardine and anchovy cans is based on the concept that standardized torso suggests uniformity, sophistication, and richness of intellect and achievement. Well, okay. I think you can also see that though those same, they're different. Maybe he's talking about also the differences between. Sometimes I'm not so interested in even hearing what artists have to say about their work. I'm more interested in my own reaction, my own emotional reaction. I look at artwork and I tell my grandchildren, if it feels good to your eyes, if you like to look at it, if it stimulates your brain, and if it touches your heart. Those are the three components. And if a piece of art can do all three things, then it's probably something worth remembering, probably something you will remember. Annie Aisbrook, a young artist from Brooklyn. She brought this piece, she delivered it on her way to having a baby, on her way to her delivery. The piece, I saw it originally in a show at Silvermine Guild, Art of the Northeast, and it was one of the sculptural prize winners. and it's made all of burrs. And she said that when she was in Amherst walking through the woods, burrs got stuck on her pants. And so she was going to do burr pants, but then decided a burr coat was more appropriate. I think what's interesting is the difference in feeling between the tea coat and the burr coat. This somehow reminds me of my grandmother, of a raccoon coat, of a mink coat, something maybe from the 30s or the 20s. Viewers that have come to the show have been very, very attracted to the two coats. I've given about 10, 12 tours of the show, and people continuously are drawn to the tea coat and the burr coat. And it's not just how did she do it. It's more than that. It's not why did she do it. There's something just about how it looks, how you expect it to feel if you put it on you. Anyway, the next artist, Ginger Krebs, again the same person from Chicago who did the woven dress. She's done a whole series of hats, and we have two of them here. An incubation helmet and an inspiration, is this called inspiration? Oh, no, an incubation bonnet. And this is supposed to be used at the beginning of the creative process. You put this on your head, and it helps you get some really good creative ideas. And this blocks out all of the obsessing. This helps you stick with your initial idea and not obsess and worry about it. And interestingly enough, this helmet was sold. We don't have a red sticker, but it's one of the pieces in the show that was sold. Diana Chamberlain is British, and she has a studio in Connecticut. Her work is seen continuously and is sold continuously. In fact, this is the second piece of hers that we have in the show. The first one sold. And like the white shoes, this is the multiples of virginal white dresses that young women start out wearing. She's also talking about how, as a single person, we are not powerful, but as a group, we gain power. This is called assembly. Another piece of mine called The Maid Took It is truly clothing with content. And you can see that there are jewels, necklaces inside the apron. And the statement is, fabric thinly disguises the crime of self-deception, unjust accusation, or assumption of guilt. Or did she really take it? That's the question we all ask. But anyway. Finally, another piece by Carrie McDougall called That's My Purse. And it says, please do touch, and the audience is encouraged to reach out and feel the purses. And of course, in her description, she tells you that these are mostly genital objects. And when I told this to the young ladies at Holy Child, they all just dropped the purses on the floor immediately. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the show. We have a book that gives background material on all the artists. Oh, there's one piece I forgot. That's not even staged. There actually is one piece I forgot. This is Ed Mader, the gentleman who is at Historic Deerfield, and he created this fantasy waistcoat out of paper, coffee filters, Q-tips, and he is one of the most knowledgeable textile people in America today. I met him when he was the head of the Bata Shoe Museum in Toronto, and he did a show called Loose Tongues and Lost Souls. And he also, for the Clark Institute, created 10 full-scale ball gowns, replicas of their collection, because they feared that if they had their collection on display too long, it would get damaged by the light and the atmosphere. So Mr. Mader created replica gowns for the exhibition. And it's hoped that he will be doing something with the Westport Historical Society in the future and putting on a show there. So if you hear this video, you're sad that you missed this show, keep your eye open for the Westport Historical Society show with Ed Mader coming up in the future. And I wish there were a way that we could get telephone numbers and names of people that would like to be informed of this show if we're lucky enough to find another place to install it. Margot and I are going to be exploring that option. Well, I think we've made quite an attempt to include different, unusual, interesting materials in the show. But I must say, it does not really qualify as a traditional show of painting. But then Margot and I were not interested in that. And this really reflects our predilection for assemblage art, interesting materials, and art with meaning, art with content. So why does it work well together? You know, one of the nice things about the show is it's interesting, but it's not screaming at you. It's not a hammer blow to the head feminist kind of message. It's softer. It lets the audience get closer, doesn't drive the audience away. I think we have the right amount of work for the space, too. Turns out to be a very, very lovely gallery. Just the perfect size, small, intimate, good gallery.
For dresses with no one to wear them, one in each color and one in each style. Maybe someday, if I'm lucky, I'll find someone to wear them, and my shopping will be done for a while.